Hey there, kiddos. This is going to be lesson 12.1, and I need you to get out 2 pages for me. Please get out page 629 and page 631. Those are the 2 pages that you'll need for today. Go ahead and grab a pencil, and we will get started. So what I'm going to start with first is a review of our place value chart. This is something you guys had at school. Unfortunately, I don't think you guys have those in your blue folders. Okay, but to review the place value chart, we've got our ones, tens, and hundreds, our thousands, 10,000, 100,000s, and on into millions. What we're going to be adding today is your decimal and the place values that come after the decimal. The decimal represents the word and. You've got your tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Okay, that ends with a TH on all of those. So that's not tens, hundreds, and thousands. It is tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So these place values represent part of a whole, just like a fraction would, just like money does. A penny represents 1/100th of a dollar bill, 1/100th of a whole. A dime represents 10 cents or 1/10th of the whole. Whereas then you've got a dollar bill, and that represents 1. So as we're talking today, we're going to be using money. We'll be using our place value cubes to kind of go over this. So place value cubes, you guys are familiar with these. Okay, you're familiar with this one as 100, right? This represents 100. Well, today it's going to represent 1 whole. Where this normally represents 10, this is going to represent our tenths. And our single is going to represent our hundredths. We would need 100 of these single cubes to equal 1. We would need 10 of these to equal 1 whole. So this will represent tenths, this will represent hundredths. Okay? How you say a decimal depends on where the number is on the place value chart. So if I had 5 tenths, I would write it in 5 and I'd read tenths. Okay, but if I had a 5 tenths and 3 hundredths, I would read that as 53 hundredths. I would say the last place value. Okay, we'll go ahead and just take a look at our assignment, and if you guys have extra questions, you can let me know. So I'm looking at page 629, okay, it's our guided practice, and if you look up here, this is just kind of what I was talking about with the money relation to the decimals and to the fractions. Okay, you've got 1 whole, that's 100 hundredths, that equals 1 as a decimal. You've got a dime, which is 1/10, okay, 10 cents. And then a penny would be 1/100th. You'd write that as a fraction and as a decimal here. So taking a look at our practice problems, it wants us to write a decimal and a fraction for each diagram. If at any point I'm going too fast, just pause me. Okay, so when I look at this, I'm looking at how many parts of the whole is represented. I count 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 what? 4 out of the 100. So that would be 4 hundredths. Okay, I could write that as a fraction like this. The decimal that would be equal to that, if you needed to look at the place value chart, okay, I've got 4 hundredths. That would mean I'd put my 4 in my hundredths place. And what would I do with this blank space, the tenths? What could I put in the tenths place value to fill it? I could put a 0. That would be 4 hundredths. When we write that 0.04. Here, I've got two place value blocks. I've got one whole, and then I've got a part of a whole. So my one whole would be the fraction. How many pieces are shaded? 100 of the hundredths. Plus, I've got to count this in strips of 10, or you could go in and count every single one, but I've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 51, 52, 53, and 54. 54 are shaded there. 54 hundredths. When I add that together, I get 154 hundredths. Okay, remember I don't add the bottom. If I were writing that as a fraction, okay, I've got one whole, so 1 and I've got 5/10ths, and I've got 4 singles. Okay, this kind of looks maybe familiar like the money. $1.54, 1 and 54 hundredths. Here, I'm going to count by my tens again. I've got 10, 20, 30, and then my singles, 39. So I would write that as 39 out of the 100, and I would write that as a decimal, my decimal, and I'd have 39 hundredths. You can put a 0 in front of there just to represent that there are 0 whole numbers. Okay, just know decimals are just like fractions. Here, I've got money. Okay, these are dimes. So how much is 2 dimes worth? 20 cents, right? And 3 pennies is worth 3 cents. So altogether, how much money do you have? Well, you would say that you have 23 cents. Or out of 100 or out of $1, you have 23 hundredths. Okay, we can go over some more together if that doesn't make sense. Taking a look at your assignment, that's page 631. Okay, you've got a little demonstration up top. Okay, but I want to talk about the problems for homework. Okay, I would like for you to circle all of the numbers 1 through 7 on the front and 8 through 13 on the back. So yes, your homework is going to be all of the numbers 1 through 13. Okay, but we're going to do a few together. We'll do 1, number 4, and then 2 on the back. Okay, please pay close attention that you do need to write a decimal and a fraction for each of these. Okay, you might notice that this isn't broken up into hundredths. It's only broken up into tenths. So how many of the tenths do you see shaded? 6 tenths. The tenths place value in your decimal is that very first place value. And how many tenths do you have? You have 6. Okay, number 3 is written as hundredths. So make sure you write that in a fraction of hundredths. Here it wants us to shade the grid of each fraction and write the decimal. Okay, so 1/10. So many of us are just going to think, okay, I'm just going to shade 1. There you go, 1/10. That's not 1/10. That represents 1/100th. So what's going to represent 1/10 of the 100? You're going to need to shade 10. Just like a dime is 1/10 of a dollar. So how do we write that as a decimal? Our tenths is that very first place value. My hundredths is that second place value. So I have 1/10. I could write that like that. Does that look familiar? 10 cents. 1/10 of a dollar is 10 cents. Okay, flipping over, looking at the back. I'm going to go over number 8 and 9 with you guys. Okay, number 8. I'm going to use cubes as I read through to evaluate this problem. Okay, starting with circling. On Tuesday, Pierce ran 3/4 of a mile and walked 3/4 of a mile. On Wednesday, he ran 2/4 of a mile and walked 1 1/4 miles. How much farther did Pierce run and walk on Wednesday than on Tuesday? I'm going to underline my question. B stands for boxing. What's my key words here? Okay, normally how much isn't key words, but when it's paired with how much more or how much farther or how many less, it is. That lets us know we need to subtract, but not right away. What you need to do first is think about how much did he run and walk on Tuesday and how much did he run and walk on Wednesday. So Pierce on Tuesday ran 3/4 and he walked 3/4. So how much total together? On Wednesday, he ran 2/4 and he walked 1 1/4. So we got to think of the totals here. On Tuesday, you should have gotten 6/4. And on Wednesday, you should have gotten 1 3/4. Now you might notice that we're not ready to set this up as a subtraction problem. I don't know what my improper fraction is equal to. I'm going to need to take it up here and divide. Okay, because that's how we change it into a mixed number. 6 divided by 4 is 1. When I subtract, I get a remainder of 2. I would write that remainder of 2 as a fraction. Now I've got two mixed numbers and I'm ready to subtract. 1 3/4 minus 1 2/4. How much more did he run on Wednesday than on Tuesday? 1/4 of a mile. Number 9. Monique said that 0.70 is greater than 0.7. But if I read that as using my place value terms, what I'm saying here is that 7/10 is greater than 7/10. Okay, she's thinking that because 70 is greater than 7, which her thinking there is correct. It is valid. 70 is greater than 7. But when you think of it as terms of place value, and both of the 7s are in the same place value, they're both in the 10th place value, 7/10 or 70 hundredths is equal to 7/10. What you guys might need to know is that adding zeros to the ends of these values does not change how much it's worth. Okay? Or we could look at it as fractions. We've got 70 hundredths is equal to 7/10. And you guys know that to be true. I could divide on top and bottom to make an equivalent fraction. Okay? So do we agree with Monique? No. Why? Because 7/10 is equal to 7/10, or 70 hundredths is equal to 7/10. Okay? Please know, guys, I've got lots of office hour times. Hopefully we might even have some time on Tuesday in our Zoom groups to go over any questions that you have. Good luck.